it's so many people are beyond brainwashed.
Yeah. I
Society
know.
today, not see reality.
Welcome back to a new episode of The Sweetest Deal. This time we talk yet again with an old friend of mine that I've known for 19 years. He still lives in Vegas, even if it's a new location. He's 40-something for a few more months, and his name is Daniel Negreanu. We talk about politics, we talk about a little bit of poker, of course, and also the climate in the States in this year of 2024. This episode is, as always, worked up together with our sponsors, Juicy Stakes Poker. I hope you will enjoy this talk because I did. It is the spring of 2024. It's been a few years now since I met this guy the first time. I think it was in 2005 or 2006. Daniel Negreanu, how are you?
I'm good. You ruined our house when we first met.
I
You
know
and all
that.
your friends, you came, you swam, you ate, you drank. Just a total nightmare having you people over.
Yeah, I remember I thought about it before doing this interview. 2006, I think in the summer we came to your house to do an interview.
Yeah.
And you had such a nice house and a big pool, and we're Swedes, we're not used to the heat, So I said, could we take a swim in the pool? And you're like, yeah, sure. So we stayed around for a few hours, had dinner and everything. Great hospitality, but maybe were we too blunt?
No, it was perfect. Actually, like I said, I bought a new house. We just moved to Lake Las Vegas. And part of my thinking was, well, if the Swedes ever come back, we need to upgrade a little bit. So we got a nicer pool, a nicer area, a basketball court. We got a gym, steam shower, sauna, whatever you guys need. You're good to go.
What was a big reason for you to move there, Daniel?
So a few things. First of all, we were already thinking about moving. Partly because, I got married in 2019, and before in that house, I was married once. I had a girlfriend who lived there for 4 years. So when you get married, the woman moves into your house. It is your space. Everything is done by you. And I thought, it makes sense for us to start fresh where we can, build something together or have something of our own. And she found this place in Lake Las Vegas. I was like, are you crazy? That's far. Lake Las Vegas is like 35, 40 minutes from the strip. It's in the middle of nowhere, right? But it's on the water.
Which direction is it?
So if you go to Henderson and you just keep on going.
Okay.
You just
all right.
keep on going.
For a bit.
So it's funny because we found, so we were looking around. She found this house, the one that we're in now. And I remember she loved it right away. And I came to look at it, and I do, what you do when you buy a house. You look at the pros, you look at the cons.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, I like this. I said, no, I wish this was a little bigger. She's like, no, it's perfect. I was like, okay, so basically I don't have the right to any opinion that's negative in any way. Because she was afraid, I wouldn't buy it. But we ended up getting a great deal, and we've got the gym to build. We're building a gym outside, a nice sick gym. And other than that, then it'll be done. So I'm excited. We love it here.
Besides the distance, any specific cons that you think it's okay, but it's a negative?
Well, there's some downside, right? Okay, so, where I was in Summerlin, if you wanted to order Uber Eats or DoorDash, there's tons of vegan places, right? Out here, we're not coming out there, buddy. That's too far. So there's in the area, I kind of like this, but there's just this little village with 3 restaurants. There's one little mom and pop grocery store. So really to get anywhere, even if you wanted to go to Henderson, it's still 20 minutes. It's a bit of a drive, but I actually, frankly, I don't mind the drive. It's beautiful. So it hasn't bothered me. And during the World Series, when we get to that point, part of the deal was, well, I'm going to have to stay down there. I'm not going to drive, 2 hours every day to get to work.
But you have your caravan or whatever you call it, mobile home or whatever you call it.
Not anymore. Now I have a room, a little restroom, a break room.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm also going to get a proper room as well. So I'll have the break room, which is really close. On breaks, I can go and do whatever. And then for a place to sleep, I'm just gonna. I told her this: if I make day 2, then I'm going to stay, and otherwise I'll come home. Seems
it's a
fair.
good plan. A bit more. It was. You always been very intense over the World Series. Or do you plan to be as? Is intense the right word, Daniel?
Yeah, intense is a fair word. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because I released a video about 20, 25 minutes about my last year. And what I do usually at the end of a year is I go over what worked, what didn't work, what can improve. And I had a moment when I was in Bahamas. And it's funny because I've been playing for 30 years, and it was Amanda who woke me up to something I didn't even see. I have what's called FOMO, fear of missing out. If there's a tournament, I want to play it, right? So I'm in Bahamas, and I just busted a tournament, and there's some 1K thing I'm supposed to jump into. I was like, yeah, but I don't really feel like playing because there's a 25K the next day. But I'm going to play. And she's like, you never do any good when you don't feel like playing, right? And I was like, I'm trying to be defensive. I'm like, wait a minute, what about that? What about that time when, oh, you're right. They're like, it's true. So it just dawned on me. I was like, you know what? I'm going to skip this tournament. I played the 25K. I made a deep run. Come like I cashed for like 75K or something like that. And it sort of made me realize like, okay, I'm 49 now. I'm not 24. So the idea of playing 12 to 14 hours a day without breaks, it'll be impossible to play your A+ game throughout that. So this year at the World Series, I'm actually going to scale back, but not like soft schedule. I just don't want to miss any of the big ones. I found myself last year, for example, I'm in the $300 buy-in Gladiator.
I know.
Okay. 24,000 people. I'm down to like 80 people. Meanwhile, there's a 10K Omaha 8 that I should be in, that my stack is ending off in or whatever. And it feels like rather than waste all that time and energy in these like smaller ones, I want to make sure that I'm fresh and ready for the 10Ks, the 25Ks, the 250Ks. So that'll mean some off days, which I don't normally take during the World Series.
Right.
There's a $1,500 stud and the next day is a 250K no limit hold'em. I'm not going to play the stud. I'm going to rest up and like focus on, I really want to, because I always do the thing where each summer I give people a chance to buy a piece. I want to make sure I win for them too. So I want to be a little, a little more on the ball.
Yeah, I think so. Everyone who knows you, and even if you have a good stamina, I guess, still, and you work out and you're in good shape, I mean, it's also, it's supposed to be fun. And of course, you love to play, but I think you appreciate to play more if you put a bit more quality than quantity, right?
Yeah, I think part of the reason, that I was driven to play so much was because of Player of the Year. And the way that the system is structured, you just have to play tons of volume because there's so many points to accumulate in all these small ones, right? So I sort of went into the year with the idea that like I'm not going to chase Player of the Year. If it happens, great. Yeah. But I'm not going to go out of my way to be playing, $600 deep stacks and stuff to gain points. I'm going to focus on the big ones, and if it happens, it happens. But I'm not going to see like Sean Deeb, for example. He's a perfect example. Like plays everything. He'll multi-table. He's in 3 to 4 tournaments. He's willing to sacrifice actual money, like EV. Yeah. In order to win Player of the Year. And there's not many people willing to do that or want to do that. So that kind of makes it a little unfair. I know there's been talk of adjusting the formula or the system a little bit, and I'm all for that. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think that if you enter that with that schedule, there's not that many that do that. And also with yours and Sean Deep's skill level, you will end up top 6, Well,
that's the thing. Like every year, basically with Sean's schedule, it's like even on a bad year, like he lost money last year. He was second in Player of the Year.
Yeah,
but he lost money,
ridiculous.
It's and a lot of that has to do with, one thing people don't realize is the World Series of Poker. As I mentioned, there's $300 buy-in, right? There's also 250K. So you could win a bunch of the small ones and still lose because, you didn't do well in the big ones. That's what matters most.
Yeah.
Like actually, Jeremy Osmond, this is funny. He won a bracelet 2 years ago and he played the tournament the next day and was stuck overall because he won like 50K for an online bracelet, 49K, and the buy-in for the next day was a 25K, and he rebought. So it took like one day. He won a bracelet, and he's down $1,000.
That's pretty. Yeah, well, that's how it is, especially when it comes to those extremely expensive ones, the 250K, even the million, the one drop that was 1 million for a couple of years. Is that still around? No, the biggest is 250. Well, the one drop moved.
The one drop isn't a World Series of Poker.
No. But I mean, the biggest one this year should be, and over the this is 250, which is big enough.
250 with a rebuy, so it becomes 500 for a lot of people.
Yeah. The Poker Players Championship is still going to be 50, is it?
Yeah. That's I love that event. It's one of my favorite events of all time. It's tough to get people because like scheduling matters, like when a tournament happens, and I think like it's hard to draw numbers for that one because people that play mixed, they play the 10Ks. And sometimes if they don't do well, they're like, well, I can't play the 50K.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think quite a few, even you have said that if you could play one tournament, of course, the main event, but it's pretty close to the Poker Players Championship if you only could play one.
I mean, as far as enjoyment goes,
8
game is my favorite. Like we just finished here at the Poker Go studio, we finished the mixed game series. And there was like 9 events or something like that. I played, I final tabled 4 times. I had a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Yeah. And I just enjoyed it. It's like, it's a different crowd of people too. It's a different world. Like I'm one of the few people at the studio that is there for everything. I'm going to be there for the PLO series next week. I played the mixed game series, and I also play the No Limit Hold'ems. Usually the No Limit Hold'em guys, that's all you see them at. So it's kind of fun for me to like socialize and, see different people and catch up and things like that.
Yeah, I remember, I'm not sure which year it was, maybe 6 or 7 or 8 when Chip Reese won the Chip Reese Trophy, which it wasn't named by then. He won that year, and that was the first year, and they had No Limit Hold'em on the final table, which was pretty silly. Unfortunately, they changed that, right?
Wrong.
Yeah.
You are dead fucking wrong.
Am I?
You are wrong about it being silly. It was ideal. We created this thing for one specific reason, okay? At that time, No Limit tournaments were blowing up, right?
Right.
So you're going to see a whole bunch of different faces, right? Now, you want to do something where you get the big names out there, right, for a final table. But the problem is that the general public is not going to watch horse.
Right.
Horse is boring. They know No Limit Hold'em. It translates well. So what we created was, all right, well, what if we make the game horse till the final table, and then we have a no limit? What that does is it limits the playing field to like superstars and star players, right? Who have a better chance to make it there.
Yeah.
And, then they're going to play the Cadillac of poker, No Limit Hold'em, right? Now, here's what happened, okay? And this is why it's important. The fields used to be like 130, 140 people because it was on TV, it was on ESPN, and players like Greg Raymer and who else had a sponsorship, they could get bought into the tournaments, right? Well, a couple of years in, or then Howard, it was actually Howard Lederer and Annie Duke that made a huge mistake here, and they convinced Jeffrey Pollack to change the final table to horse, right? So what happened was it aired as horse. ESPN came back with us and they said the ratings were no good. So if you want to continue to run the event on here, go back to No Limit Hold'em, right?
Right.
So ESPN is saying do this, and it's the best thing. They were like Howard and Annie were so vehement about convincing Jeffrey that no, you got to do it pure, whatever. Totally missing the boat on what really sells. So they did change it back. When they did, ESPN said we're not going to film it anymore. So now from 130 it goes to 90, right? If we lose a third of the field because of this dumb mistake. Like one of the most important things about the prestige of the event was it was on ESPN, and when we lost that, it took a real big hit. So. No, it was designed as a really cool event. It's a mixed game event, but at the very end, bring out your No Limit Hold'em.
Yeah, so everyone could follow, and there was also, a perk into it that you get extra value for being on the TV table, which by then were much more worth, of course.
Yeah, and look at it this way: I love Stud 8 or Better. It's probably my favorite game to play. Trying to commentate and show this on TV is awful.
Yeah,
it is impossible. Yeah. Like people are watching, they're like, wait a minute, this guy has a deuce, 3, 5, 8, 7, queen high. This guy has a pair of fours. Who wins? It's like it's just and it's limit too. Right. So it's not like there's no dramatic like, oh boy, is he going to make the call? Ooh, huge. It's just
I see. Okay,
it's not,
great.
Doesn't translate. So you were absolutely wrong, but now you understand.
Thank you for correcting me. I remember some of the players thought it was more for the player integrity or whatever, and the best player and so on. But I do understand. Yeah. It was so star-studded. It was the coolest event to follow. And I remember, I think I could almost name all those players on that final table. It was just sick. It was like everyone was top 20 in the world, more or less.
It was a perfect final table. Yeah. You've got, Phil Ivey, Dole Brunson, Chip Reese. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yeah. That was cool. Now, Doyle Brunson, how long was it ago? You went, was last year, right? Was it? When he passed away?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
the funeral.
I got his shirt. He made these shirts. The Godfather.
That's why I thought it. Godfather of
right
poker.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice shirt.
He's got another shirt that I was gonna wear, but it's funny, maybe a segue or whatever. But he made this other line, and it's like poker is war, and there's hats and there's shirts. And I remember one day, this was right after late October of last year, and I remember I was gonna wear it in a final table. Then I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe people are going to see it as insensitive, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have two real wars going on. And it's kind of like, poker is war? That's a game, you wimp. Wow. You know what real war is? People dying in the conflict. Yeah. And so I as much as I love the saying and I love the phrasing, I was like, in my mind, I even asked my agent Brian, I was like, you think it's like distasteful a little bit? Feels like it is to me, so I did. But I'd like to wear them at some point. It's just, right
let's
now.
wait till Ukraine and
I mean, we live in a
Gaza is
world too
sorted.
where we live in a world too where everything you do, people are like, you're the most evil person. Like they love to jump on you for stuff. So I thought of that one. I said, maybe I'll just wait on that one.
Yeah. That's good. It's interesting how politics usually. I mean, I watched the Oscars the other night, and how politics comes into the entertainment industry. It's been into the poker, but very little. I remember Oliver Bousquet and Daniel, like
Coleman.
one final table somewhere in Europe on the EPT.
Dan Coleman and
Dan
Olivier
Coleman,
Bousquet.
and Oliver Bousquet. I had the Free Gaza thing. Maybe it's 10 years ago or something.
Yeah.
It's how that came into. I mean, modern day. Do you follow the war? Do you follow the politics, Daniel?
I have for a very long time, very intently, actually, to be honest with you. Even before, the recent things on October 7th, probably a few years ago, I don't know exactly when, but I spent a lot of time just digging into the conflict because it is complex, in the Middle East. And I really wanted to understand it as best I could. So I took in, books, and I watched a lot of videos and listened to a lot of people on both sides. And I remember, shifting my mindset on it several times where I'm like, oh, well, they make good points here, but they make good points here. And ultimately I came to the conclusion that, when you're dealing with a region where you are a sliver of that region, just a small little tiny dot, but every nation around you wants you gone, wants you off not only like, they don't want to share them, they want you dead, all of you dead. That then you have to say, like, a lot of the times what they end up in situations is it's about survival. Protecting their existence. And so, so without getting too deep into it, obviously what happened on October 7th sort of brought it up for a lot of people. So now everyone is like an expert on the conflict and everyone knows stuff, but really in reality, people are just parroting slogans that they don't even understand the meaning of. You mentioned the Oscars, you had these people wearing these red pins of bloody hands.
Yeah.
They don't even know what they're wearing. They don't know how offensive that is.
Right.
That was from many years ago when 2 Israeli soldiers went to the wrong part of Palestine and they were brutally just ripped to shreds and murdered. And there was a guy who did it, up in the ball with bloody hands. Like, I don't think that these actors and actresses like that wore them knew that. Right. But I wonder now if like understanding what the symbol is for, whether they regret it. And I don't know, because I feel like, it's so many people are beyond brainwashed. I know today not see reality.
It's really tricky because it's tough on both sides, and it's really difficult to have a strong opinion on either side and understanding both sides. I mean, have you thought about, is there anything one can do to kind of do your best to chip in any way, information wise, or in some way do something to help, if you know what I mean?
Well, so here's the thing. Step one, every single member of Hamas must be murdered or killed, whatever you want to call them. They have to go. You have to totally disassemble Hamas. The only chance those people have in that region, frankly, is re-education. Because these kids, like, they're learning, UNRWA, which is the wing of the UN. Like, they have documentation for children where they're like teaching them math. And it's like, how many suicide bombers does it take to kill a Jew kind of shit? You know what I mean? We're learning from a very young age that martyrdom, jihadism is healthy. So instead of that people, right, focusing on building their own economy, flourishing, having an export-import business, taking all the humanitarian aid that's been given to them across the world, right? Instead of using that to help the people, right? What they did was this. The heads of Hamas went to Qatar. They don't even live there, and they're billionaires. They take all the aid. What's left of the aid they used in the last 20 years since Israel left to build terror tunnels, to create terror. So at its core, like, they don't have any sort. You don't hear any aspirations of what they want to sort of fix their society, other than kill all the Jews and take the land, right? Yeah. And the problem with it is it's a recycling thing where, like, 2 parents teach their kid this stuff. This kid's going to be 18 one day. He's going to be indoctrinated with the same thoughts. You see these 5 and 6-year-olds, and this happens on both sides, by the way, too. You have some sort of quote unquote Zionist areas of Israel who are taught to hate them as well, right? So re-education of the children is really the only way. Yeah. But also putting in a leadership in the region that is moderate, that is reasonable, that isn't Islamic, frankly, because when you look at ISIS and you look at Boko Haram and Hezbollah and Hamas, they're not all the same, but they are the same. They all have the same ideological views, right? And they want a caliphate across the entire globe. That means everybody, not just like, they don't want to come to your area and be like, live with peace. They want to overtake it and change it. Like you see even in Germany. I mean, even in your country too. They're not there to, meld with the culture and the custom. They're there to overtake. And that ideology is problematic, right? And before people say, oh, you're an Islamophobe, whatever, I don't dislike people from where they're from. Ideologically, if you are a radical Islamist, it is rational and warranted to be afraid of that. Because if you look at the atrocities that are perpetuated across the world, they're in 2024, they are all done in the name of Islam today, right? Now, Christians in the past have done crazy things during the Crusades. You've had, Asian cultures with religious aspects doing crazy things. But today, the number one ideological threat to our existence, to Western culture as a whole, is radical Islam. Period.
Have you talked to any moderate people supporting the Palestinian cause that you think is a good talking partner when it comes to the subject? Because it's so infected, and it's such a big divide between the one side and the other. So is there any way how to do it? Because it seems insolvable. Because they're not going to budge.
There is a guy named Rudy Rochman. Okay. Rudy Rochman, which is whatever. And he's an Israeli activist and has been for many, many years, even before this conflict. And what he did a lot of YouTube videos, right? He does a lot of it where he'd go to like Berkeley and he'd say, would you like to have a conversation? And he'd talk to people about the conflict. He also would bring, which is dangerous for the people there, he would bring Palestinian activists and Israeli activists into a room and videotape it, whatever. But they'd have to blur the Palestinian activists, because if they go back home and it's made known to Hamas that they were doing anything with them, they're just going to be killed. But he would do this. He would have these conversations and he would try to find the common ground. He says, we're cousins. We're really from, we're really cousins. And and he said, we should focus on both things that we want aspirationally, which is peace for our families, right? And the current way in which it's happening, it's never going to be like when people say, ceasefire. It's like a nice, cool, okay, ceasefire. All right, well, what about the hostages? Ceasefire, just let them stay? Like, how about everyone in the world should focus on one thing first, okay? First and foremost, release the hostages. If it was your family, right, that's in these tunnels for months now, you would want first and foremost for everybody in the world to do everything they can to get them out, right? Then we can talk about what's next as far as steps, But first and foremost, as a country, like every country in the world would respond this way. Every country. You think if Sweden was attacked and, a bunch of girls at a music festival were murdered and killed and like they would just be like, oh, well, maybe we'll talk peace. No, they retaliate, especially if hostages are taken. This is what every sane country in the world would do. But Israel is Jewish, right? So they're held to a different lens. Israel has made peace with Egypt and it made peace with Jordan. So it's proven that it can make peace. Like it, and that those peace have withstood. You notice the borders to Egypt and Jordan are not open to these people. They don't want them. They don't want them in because they've let them in before to disastrous results. So overall, just the entire, educational system there has to be revamped, and like they have to be, de-angerized, I guess.
That's a good word. De-angerized. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good word, but I think
what was the guy's name? The Jewish guy, Rothman?
Rudy Rochman.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's also tricky these days when it comes to social media and YouTube is such a strong platform. It is that all the spiders and all the algorithms makes it, if you follow something, you go into one link and follow an ideology or an idea, then you just get pumped with the same thing or worse or stronger, which makes you leave the other side. So it's quite tricky. I think that's a good tip. I tell my friends, I said, listen to Donald Trump or listen to Palestinians or listen to Putin. See the interview he did, and to try to understand the other side if you're very strongly on one side. Otherwise, I don't think usually you get too one-sided and modern technology doesn't help, right?
Yeah, what you're talking about, is described as a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And when you go down one, you know what's funny is when you go down the rabbit hole, if you go left or you go right politically, the further out you go, you know what you end up with? The same enemy. You know who?
Yeah.
Jews.
Yeah.
So they're like so much more alike than they even realize. They always end up with blaming the Jews because the Jews have shown to be, as a culture, successful in everything they've done. Like when they went to Israel, it was swampland. Nobody wanted it. They said, we'll take it. They bought the land. And then they cultivated it, and they built this big city and everything like that. And then, there was a little bit of jealousy from the surrounding Arabs. And now they're like, we want it. I'm like, but you didn't build it.
Yeah.
We did this. So, yeah, but you're right about the rabbit hole. And that's why, but I do believe, like in the last year or two, I've seen an emerging middle, if you will, of common sense.
Right.
Because we do have the extremes. And those people are unreachable. Whether you're in the far right or the far left, I feel like they're not reachable. They're not worth having conversations with. But there's an emerging middle. You look at a guy like Bill Maher. Okay. He's a classic liberal, has always been liberal, but he's also common sense. He doesn't just agree with everything on either side. And he has on his show, he has Republicans and he has people of different ilk and different viewpoints and things like that. And then there's others like, Russell Brand, who's got some kooky ideas, but he's, in there. Joe Rogan as well. These are people like Joe Rogan explains he was always a liberal, in LA, he moved to Austin and he's like, some of this shit got crazy. And that's kind of how I feel where I don't believe I changed my views. I didn't. It's just there's new things that popped up in the last 5-6 years that I didn't sign up for. What did it mean to be a liberal? For gay marriage? Yes.
Yeah.
Let women choose abortion? Absolutely. Take care of the poor and less privileged? Absolutely. Rich people pay, higher taxes, right? I'm for gun control because, common sense gun control. I'm for all those things, right? But I didn't sign up for all the crazy shit, all the tangents that they're going on. Right. And the extreme sort of like almost, communist viewpoints. Like that's not. So now you feel like you're a man without a party because I'm definitely not aligned with Republicans. Like they have crazy, wacky ideas. But just because I agree with some things Republicans say, the people in the left, they say you're a right-wing extremist. Yeah. That's how crazy they are. You're not even allowed. Like, the perfect example of what happened. COVID, right? The lab leak theory. So the COVID happened. People were trying to figure out what it came from. If you were a Republican, you believed that it came from a lab. It was a lab leak. Right. If you're a Democrat, that means you had to believe it came from a wet market, period.
Right.
Because if you believed it came from a lab leak, that makes you racist.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's how crazy it was. They didn't take the information on the surface and go, you know what? The fact is, nobody knows for sure.
No.
Both are plausible. It could have been this. It could have been this. But people just were tribal. Yeah. They're like, no, I'm a Democrat. It's racist to say it came from a lab. And by the way, the theory does hold some weight. It's the only coronavirus lab in all of China. And it just so happened that it started in Wuhan. There's like wet markets all over China, but we've never seen it go out. So again, the point is it shouldn't matter what your political party is when you take in information or viewpoints. It should simply be like, what do I think of this? But it's so difficult for people because of the thing you said. They're sucked into their rabbit holes and they're only being fed talking points and information from their one side. Yeah. And I try to be as balanced as I can with hearing things from both and, coming to my own conclusions on, what makes sense. But again, if you see, the thing is I feel like with especially the progressive left, like the far left, if you don't fall in line 1000% with their ideology, you are an enemy. Yeah. They're like, there is no, they talk about, there's no tolerance. There is no diversity of viewpoints. It's they want diversity, right? Diversity. Let's equal everything out. But they don't want diversity of thought. You can't have an opinion that doesn't toe the line exactly with what they believe.
Right. No, I think it's interesting when you say you have the far left ones and the far right one, and you want to make that group smaller, and maybe the people that have a little bit of more sensible thoughts can be drawn into the center. So you can
they are smaller. Here's the thing. Those extremes represent maybe 10% and 10% of the population. The rest of us fall somewhere in the middle. The problem is with social media, as you mentioned, those voices are the ones that are amplified. Yeah, those are the ones that the algorithms push. So it appears as though, we're super crazy divided. But then when you actually in person have a conversation with somebody from different political viewpoints or stuff like that, I actually had a great one. Perfect example. We're sitting at the poker table, right? The leveling ground. I'm sitting there with Dylan Wiseman, and I'm sitting there with Alex Foxen and Kristen Foxen as well. They have very different political viewpoints, as do I. But we had a very civil and fruitful enjoyable conversation where fair questions were asked, questions were answered. Dylan was more than reasonable in his responses, trying to find common ground, and Alex was fantastic with that. So even though they may have different, come to different conclusions, they don't in the argument, their goal isn't to make you feel stupid.
Right.
Their goal is to hear you and respond with their viewpoints. And maybe sometimes you go, you know what? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, especially, I think it's a sign of mediocre mindset if you're not prepared to listen, especially to someone that you respect in a way and is not stupid and is not far in any direction. Listen to the person. If you're just saying your viewpoint, you're not there to learn anything, right? You're just there to increase your own thoughts in the same direction, I think.
While we're on it, and I learned this when I did this emotional intelligence course many years ago. Very valuable tip. And I also read it in the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. One of the best ways to practice listening as a listening exercise is for 2 people that say debate an issue, right? And the way it would work is this. Rick, you would say your point, right? Okay. Now, before I can respond to your point with my views, I have to repeat back to you what you just said, or at least what I heard.
Interesting.
So you say something, you say blah, blah, blah. I have to go, well, so you're saying this, and then you have to say, yes, that's what I said. Or no, that's not what I'm saying. And until you've come to that understanding of you repeating back, then the other person goes. Now the other person makes their point and you have to do the same thing. What you end up finding is the exercise itself, people actually listen to each other and they're way more likely to find common ground. Even on an issue, say, as divisive as abortion, right? Which people are, for women's choice, people call it murder. Like doing that, I've done it with abortion. It's a really valuable tool, even in a relationship with your wife or whoever. A listening exercise where you actually, the other person now feels heard because you repeat it back and you're like, okay, they hear me. Yeah. Now they're going to explain that. Do I hear then? So often what we do is we're just waiting for the other person to finish so we can talk.
Right. And you're preparing your idea and you're not listening. It's almost like taking notes, but extended and improved taking notes because you say it. So you have to listen. It's a really good idea, actually. I like it. It's interesting to see. There's quite a few. There's always things, and of course we have the political climate. I like to talk a bit of politics when it comes to Biden and Trump and so on. It's kind of difficult to follow it from Sweden or from Europe. It's still very interesting. Where do you stand today? Are you between those two kind of elderly guys?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I saw something and it just was startling to me. 25 years ago, Bill Clinton was the president. 25 years ago. He's still younger than both of these guys.
Right.
I mean, just when you think about that, you're like, wow, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously, I think for a lot of people, age is an issue. It's so funny because on Bill Maher last week, he mentioned that he's like, Biden should step into it. People mock his age and, I can ride a bike. And he's like, own it. You know what?
Yeah.
Sure,
Yes.
I'm an old man.
Yeah.
I'm an old fart. But guess what? I've been around the block. I've been doing this 50 years. I know what I'm doing. Right. Yeah. So instead of it being a crutch, like it was actually Ronald Reagan, who many years ago in a debate just absolutely destroyed. But he said something like, I won't make age an issue. He said something effective like, I won't make my opponent's inexperience and youth an issue in this campaign. Right. And it's right. By doing it, you're just basically saying,
turn it around.
Yeah, you flip it around, right? Yeah. So that's how I think a lot of people in the country are frustrated because these are the choices, seems like same old, and there's no like young up and comer. And I think one of the issues Biden may have is Kamala, for whatever reason, his VP, for whatever reason, people don't like her. I don't mind. She doesn't bother me. Like I'm whatever. I'm Switzerland on it. Like I don't really, but it seems like people really don't like her. So the thought of Biden being like 83, 84 and potential, as you get older, the chances of you going are dead. So now the VP choice, becomes more important because people are like, wait a minute, if I vote for him, he doesn't make it, then it's her. So that's where, having a VP kind of, matters. As for Trump, listen, the people that like Trump, nothing you ever going to tell them is going to change their mind. Nothing. No. But you know what I am seeing, unfortunately? Seeing a lot of people that feel disenfranchised that did vote for Biden and would vote for Biden are going to vote for Trump.
What is the main reason for that?
I think
Biden?
I think there was a few things. One, Afghanistan, and this is the thing. Like these are my thoughts. These are things that I hear from people. That was botched. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
Having said that, every one of the last 5 presidents said they were going to get out of Afghanistan. They all said they're going to do it. Biden actually did it. Now, they didn't do it right. They didn't do it well. We left a lot of allies to die, interpreters, people that were working with us. It was
equipment.
Kind of we've essentially left those people to die.
Yeah.
Right? Because, the Taliban's just going to take over. And now you're going to see, Sharia law and, women having no rights, et cetera, et cetera. There's that. I think there was the other one that really stuck out for people was kind of the pandering. And I get it. I get why he did it. But the pandering of like the student loan debt forgiveness thing, right? And this is one where, I don't think it makes sense either. But like in the United States of America, unlike others, kids just end up in debt forever when they take student loans because it's predatory. It's a terrible system. There is no real government-run higher education. There should be, but there isn't. That's a sidebar. So one way in which, the Biden administration thought to help those people in debt is just give them $10,000, right?
Right.
That's kind of a broken ideal. It's a political loser as far as I'm concerned because frankly, 65% of the population didn't go to college. 13% of the debt is from people that were either getting their graduate degrees, right? So it's a very small percentage of people that you're pandering to, if you will.
Right.
And the reason I don't like it is because it doesn't solve any problem. It's a Band-Aid. Okay, so we're going to give these people $10,000. That's nice. What about the people who actually did pay, right? And are struggling? Can they get $10,000 too, or no? What about them? And ultimately, does this solve anything? In 10 years from now, what are we just going to keep? You have to change the way in which the student loan programs work. Because currently the way that it works is if you take a loan, you can never go bankrupt on that loan.
Right.
You cannot file bankruptcy. You just owe it's a noose around your neck for the rest of your life. And many people pay into their 50s.
But it's also a load of money that is kind of loaned to people. It's such a huge amount of money that is out there waiting to get back in a way, and it's not.
Well, but it doesn't though because it's private lenders, right?
Right.
So private companies lend this money and they make bank because they make shit ton of money on it. They fleece these kids who feel like they don't have another opportunity. I also think too, I think going forward, if you look at tuition costs for universities and colleges, they've skyrocketed and they shouldn't be because frankly, you can get an education now just as good doing this on the internet. Right. It's all available for you, right? So why are you're paying for the illustrious label of Harvard or Princeton?
Yeah.
Obviously, for some things, you need to actually go to school, but realistically, I think in the next 20 years, you're going to see less and less people, going to higher education in the form that it is now.
Yeah, I know. I don't know much about it. I know Jordan B. Peterson is trying to develop some kind of online school.
There's plenty of online schools, but as far as one that's I guess considered reputable in that regard, during COVID, look what happened. Most schools still function. They just function, over Zoom and stuff like that.
And even more effective, maybe,
Can you hang on 1 second?
Yeah.
Can you hang on 1 second?
Yeah, sure. Is it Rocky and Apollo?
The dogs. Oh, that's okay. All right, I'm back.
Excellent. Was it Rocky and Apollo?
Yes. Yeah.
They're still around, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are they good?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's always interesting. Is what you really wish for is it's kind of a shame because obviously, being a Swede, I think I would say 95% at least are leaning to. If they had to vote in the States, I think at least 95% would be Biden supporting. That's kind of Europeans. Most Europeans, I think, are in that direction. So it's the problem is sometimes when you hear the left social media or whatever you want to call it, it's kind of always talking down on the right, which is kind of it gives it a bit of bad taste in a way too.
You bring a good point. It's we're not going to get anywhere if we start every conversation by, okay, you're stupid and here's why.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't work, right? No. So I've learned probably even myself, I played a role, I got caught up in it myself of sort of villainizing or demonizing the other side, and since I've come to accept people for who they are and hear them out. And obviously, I'm not going to like everybody, but I'm not going to hate anybody just based on their political views.
Right.
They have a different life experience than I do. Things that matter to them as their top priority may not to me, right? So imagine you were this is the abortion thing. Imagine you were like, super Christian, right? And you were like all in, like very devout Christian, whatever. And you believed at your core that, a 2-month-old in a woman's stomach is a child. You believe that was life, right? If you believe that, right? Then you would be opposed to killing that baby, right? You would be opposed to that.
Yeah, of course.
And so if that issue is the most important thing to you, who would you vote for, right? You would vote Republicans. You would, it's about how you prioritize. I don't know many people that prioritize that as number one, but it seems like the vast majority of the country in the U.S. is pro-choice. But if you were that person, so that's what I'm saying, is that person may have those views from their own personal held beliefs. And, and it is a complicated subject. Bill Burr, have you heard of him? He does a funny joke.
Of course, yeah.
He does a really funny joke about this, and I'm going to ruin it, but I'll try it anyway.
No, I see it. Yeah, I know. Tell me.
He's like, he says, I'm pro-choice, but it's like, the other side's against killing babies. He's like, because you're killing a baby, right? He's like, well, it's not a baby yet, because, he's like, imagine I put a cake in the oven, and the cake is baking, and you come in and you take the cake and you throw it all over the floor. And I go, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? And the guy goes, what? It wasn't a cake yet. And he's like, well, that would have been if you just left it alone.
It's very good. So
I think again, you can see why, they view it as a baby. And, then you go in with a baby, right? That's going to happen. And then you go to the clinic and you come out and there's no more baby, right? Baby gone. So again, like I said, I'm pro women having the choice in the situation, but I'm also acknowledging that I understand that it is the death of a life, but let's say. But then the Republicans take it crazy far, where they're trying to call an embryo, a frozen embryo.
Right, I know.
That's just like,
that is getting. It's like, come on. But let's say you don't want to kill a babies, like Bill Burr said. It's a little bit like killing a baby. Then, but at the same time, you don't want the NRA to develop and everyone have a gun, and you still want the really rich people not to have 8% tax. You want them to pay a bit more to help the young people and so on. So you're in a bit of a balance. You have to, but still, I don't want them to kill babies. So you have a problem there. Who are you going to vote for?
Well, that's the thing. So ultimately what you do, and I think, I don't know, it was Reagan again, but it's like, ultimately you have to figure out what do you prioritize, or what do people prioritize? And generally speaking, the number one thing people always prioritize, it's the economy, stupid, as they say. Yeah. Those people it's the conservative Christians, it's going to be based on, issues like this. And then for a lot of, progressives, it's going to be about abortion and things like that. But the vast majority of people who have children, they care about how much it costs to feed their kids, how much it costs for gas to get to where they got to go. They care about the daily issues. They're not preoccupied with the culture wars of pronouns and, and this and that and what's right and what's wrong and all that. So that doesn't affect their daily lives. What does is, inflation, like cost of goods, the ability to support your family, living wages, all these kind of things. And frankly, on those issues, if they really took a deeper dive, they would see that the Democratic Party is much more beneficial to the middle class and the poor. But they do such a poor job of marketing that people don't even know. Like, I watched this video the other day of this woman who's a Trump supporter. And, she was asked, what is the reason that you support Trump? And he's like, well, because, I have to take insulin because I'm a diabetic or whatever. And I feel like Trump's going to, do what he can to help. She doesn't even know that in 2018, the U.S. had the highest insulin prices by a mile of anywhere in the world. And then Biden came in and he put a cap on it at $35 a month. Right. So she doesn't even know. So she's voting for a guy who she thinks is going to help her, but is blind to the truth because for some reason she's not being reached. And part of why she's not being reached, I think, is because we are caught up so much in these culture wars of things that don't really matter to people that they're missing the bottom line message. It's like, oh, you want to put food, you want lower drug costs? You want lower drug costs? Those guys are not going to help you.
No.
But if they don't know, how are they going to Wake
I
up.
mean, the information channels. I mean, it's kind of old now to watch CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or whatever. I don't understand. Is there any chance for a network in the States to find a neutral news organization that might grow and catch up and get people to understand that here is neutral business? Is that not marketable enough?
Well, I think it's sort of happening, but in a different way, right? So I think as we see as the future goes, like it's much easier to sort of develop your own content now and put it on social media. And more people are going to social media for their news rather than, cable news, right? Because you're right. Like obviously MSNBC is far one way, Fox News is far the other, and CNN, tries to be middle-ish, but it
Yeah,
isn't, right? It's
yeah,
it's it's got a left-wing bias as well. And that's why I think like one of the things that was already existing on X, Twitter, whatever, before Elon, but he sort of like continued to revamp it, is community notes.
right.
Like this is really important, right? Somebody posts something, right? Community note says, okay, just so you know, this is not true, because so many people, when they take in information, they read the headline, they don't even read the piece. Mike Madison does this all the time. It's so funny. He tweeted like 3 in a row where he tweeted an article that had a headline, and I read the article, and I was like, Mike, this is saying the exact opposite of what you think it does, but you didn't read the article, right?
Right.
So I think like there's also another really great development. I hope this catches on. It's called the Ground News app. So
Okay.
Ground News, what it does, it takes every single story that's going on in the world, right? It gives you a slant of left, factual, mostly factual, right, like, middle. It'll show you where the people align, and then it'll show you all the pieces written about it and give you sort of a biased view on
Right.
which way it leans. So
Right.
now at least you know what you're ingesting has
Mm.
a spin on it, because everything does. Everything has a spin based on what they want, like, they want the narrative to be,
Right.
and it's good to know, like, okay, what did I just read? And this felt like it had a right-wing angle. Does it? Yeah, it does. Okay.
Mm.
So that's partly what's baked into it. So what's important then is to, read the left-wing angle of the story and then read the centrist one, right?
Yeah.
And then try to,
There's something.
then you dig in and try to find what the actual facts
Yeah.
are.
So like ground news, is that what you
Ground
said?
app. That's the Ground News, Ground app. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I really think so. I remember on the Poker magazine when where I worked there, 2005 to 2012 or whatever. When we did that article in your house, you were sitting in a sun chair outside. It was some nice pictures and all. And I always then also asked you about the religious bit. And have you changed over the past 19 years? You think when your view on God, or are you still the same?
Oh, I have a very complicated view on it. That would go on a tangent that would make people go, "Oh my God, he's lost his mind, bro."
Okay,
But
cool. Give it to me.
aliens, bro.
No, you're not.
Oh man, I feel like, I mean, obviously I watched. It's a fun show. It's like obviously a lot of it's bullshit, but a show called Ancient Aliens, which is it's just fun to like sort of think about. But in all seriousness, like, um, you know, the universe is an interesting place, and we know so little about it. We know so. I do think it's incredibly unlikely that in the vastness of the universe there isn't another civilization that exists somewhere. And if they do, um, logistically speaking, they're more likely to be advanced than we are.
Hmm.
So who's to say? And people are seeing a lot of crazy things lately. And even the government sort of acknowledged that there are some things.
Yeah, I got you.
So,
I got you. It's
again,
interesting.
and like you look at some old paintings. This is what really got, like, there's some old paintings of Jesus, and there are these two spaceships in the sky with like angels in them, right? And then you see another guy looking up at one, and then when you look at a lot of the references, like the biblical references about, the stairs to heaven, right? And then you think about even like dragons, like what in Chinese culture they thought of as dragons. Like when you think of what a dragon is, it's a fire breathing with smoke coming out of its nose, and it flies around the air.
Right.
Like, wait a minute. That like, and again, with them not knowing anything about technology or what a spaceship is, might that have been? I would do like the ancient aliens. Might that have been
Yeah.
an alien encounter and an actual spaceship? Who's to know?
Wow.
I've come to the conclusion that being rigidly convinced about the way in which the universe was conceived and is a mistake. We don't know anything, So
Right.
I'm open to all possibility, whether it's
Right,
alien,
right.
supernatural,
I
all things.
Yeah, it's like what we talked about before. I think the best way to be, as long as there's not proof that you're not convinced, and you try to convince other people. But it's interesting to talk about. I like the idea. I mean, aliens is such a weird word, because we have some pictures of aliens like green men with big eyes or whatever. But it's not that. It's something else in the universe. If there's something that might be involved in that case, so something like that, Daniel, is it?
Yeah,
Instead of God.
well, no, it could be, there could be both. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be both. Like, I don't know. So everything that's written, biblically has been sort of, verified, right? All the archaeological finds. There's never been an archaeological find to disprove what's written in the Bible, right?
Right.
Now, the question is what is the actual source, right? Like, what is God? Is God supernatural? Is God an alien race that's more advanced? Are we all living in a sim? Look at that. Like, think about that, right? Think about how close we are with artificial intelligence to creating human beings or fake people, like AI bots that you wouldn't be able to distinguish, right? So we can do that, right? Who's to say we're all not that already?
Yeah.
And I always say to people who say we might be in a sim, I just want to thank whoever is playing me in this video game, because you're doing a great job. I'm having a great life. Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it was Louis C.K. that said that once. He said, "If I get to draw again," he talks about races or what. It's very sensitive matter, but he says, "Yes, white man. Every time I would choose if I get reborn." It's like, come on, man. It's typically him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think you had let's say we had a draw, and we picked our draws to who we would become, and we would kind of develop our characters. You're pretty happy with the draw you got, Are you happy?
Listen, I've done pretty well with my life. I have freedom. I have all the things that you need, and I know I'm blessed, and I know I've been privileged, and all the things. I'm very aware of that and very thankful. But a lot of it too, there's a lot of people that were in my position that didn't get to where I am as well, and I know a lot of the reason that I got here was hard work, and overall my ability to bear down when needed and get the job done. Like I didn't have the typical social life of a 22-year-old when I was in Vegas. Like most kids are in college having those experiences. I was sitting at a poker table grinding my ass off because I wanted to be the best I could be.
And then the turns, and by then, when you were 21, you didn't know that the boom was coming, of course, I mean, not taking advantage, but going with the flow in a good way. You were one of the ones that really adapted to the environment that was created in a way during the poker boom, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, listen, part of when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, like from very young age. So I was very comfortable on camera. I enjoyed it. And then obviously when cameras started following poker, it was natural for me. I was just being myself, and not, shocked by, the environment. I wasn't nervous or anything like that. And that played out well because obviously that's when poker started to get hot. And I started to do really well too. Like the first season of WBT, I didn't cash at all. So I wasn't really in the, and I was just really disappointed in that because I thought they were blowing up. They were making a big name in poker. And I was like not involved at all.
Right.
And then I remember I made some sort of, again, like I did, this year, some conscious choices to change how I approach things for season 2 and season 3. And then I won back to back. I won a $1.1 million and a $1.8 million, in back-to-back years, and WBT Player of the Year, WSO Player of the Year, all those things.
No, it's interesting. And also understanding that poker, during those years, the golden years, maybe 2004 to 2009, 10, 11, there somewhere, to be able to be a gladiator, because it was such a big thing that was broadcasted everywhere. It was on TV channels all over the world. So just to become a popular player and get supporters, fans, and then endorsements was a very big deal, right?
Yeah, that's what's different about today and like back then with poker. Like you mentioned the golden era, right? And back then there was a lot of value in being on TV and creating a brand. Tons of value in that, because there were online companies that were throwing money at people to wear patches and to endorse their sites and be ambassadors and the like. Today it's different. Those opportunities don't really exist, not in the same way. Obviously, GG Poker does. some sponsorship of some players, and so there's some other entities that do as well. But it's not as robust as it once was. Like back then, you're some random guy from Bohunk, New Jersey, and they'll give you $10,000 to just wear a patch on your shirt, like just at the final table.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, sure. That doesn't happen anymore like that. So people are finding other ways to kind of make money, and that's coaching sites. Like you're seeing a lot of streamers, coaching sites. You see content creators, people that are doing YouTube and stuff like that. But as far as like the old fashioned ambassador, but honestly, there were just way too much money these guys were making. They're doing very little.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought that I got the question yesterday, and of course, when it was so hyped during those years, and it was everywhere, and he asked me, "Well, is poker more or less dead if you're not following it? If you don't click on it on your social media, you don't see it at all, more or less." I mean, how's the status of poker in the States today and the live scene?
Okay, so get this straight. So the world's changed, right? It used to be you watch poker on TV. High stakes poker was great because every Sunday people looked forward to 1 hour on Game Show Network, and that's the way that people consume content. That's not how people consume content anymore.
No.
It is to a small degree, but the vast majority of people do so in online clips and social media. And poker has never, even during the boom, never been more popular and bigger, right? Now, it's a niche as well, still a niche sport, but like think about gaming. There's a whole bunch of guys that do streaming, right? That stream video games. You've never heard of them, I'm sure. But they've got 50 million subscribers and viewers and stuff like that. Poker, all the numbers have been growing in terms of participation in playing, viewing, because there's so many more people creating content that they put out now. Back in those days, you had ESPN doing the World Series of Poker, high stakes poker, and then of course you saw like Poker After Dark and the Big Game, right?
Yeah.
But now, like people do
everywhere.
vlogs. People do live streams, like Hustler has a live stream. Everyone does a live stream. There's some package shows. We had Game of Gold, which, as far as I was concerned, if you didn't watch it, you're making a huge mistake, Ricard. It's the best poker show that's ever been created by a mile.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
No, I haven't. What was it?
Game of Gold. Go to GG Poker YouTube. It is the best poker show that's ever been. I've been in poker 30 years. There's nothing like this. You're gonna love this show. You're gonna absolutely love it.
Okay.
There's no commentators, by the way.
But it's the people around the table take care of the entertainment and the discussions.
People in a back room watching. So essentially what you'll find is you're going to end up with some teams. So when you're in playing for our team, the rest of the team is watching you and they can see the cards. So they're just getting natural reactions from the back room. It's not rehearsed. It's just like, Ricard, you're in there and doing it in a pot. And then me and the teammates are going, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah.
Why is he? He's obviously, like this. And you just get the natural emotion and reaction, and you'll see it's the best show you've ever watched with poker.
Yeah.
And that's new. And that's thanks to GG kind of like being really innovative and understanding that like same old gets tired. Live stream, poker show, great.
Oh, that's
this
fun.
was like combining reality TV concepts with poker in a really unique way. And I won't spoil it for you, but go ahead and watch it.
No, I will definitely do that. And I remember Poker Magazine was attached to, Martin the Knave. And he had Martin's Poker, and I remember we played team poker once upon a time, 2006 maybe, and it was the most fun we had. We played all heads-up tables, ring games, different games, and we played as a team. And we tried many times in Sweden to create different kind of leagues and so on. It's really great.
This is even better because this is a show where you will be on teams at certain points, but guess what? There is only one winner. There is only one winner. So your team doesn't win. There will be one winner. And I'm not going to spoil it because there's a lot of twists and turns that happen throughout the show.
Many episodes or?
I think it's 12.
And it's on YouTube, on GG Poker's YouTube
watch
page.
The first one. Go watch the first one and tell me.
I will do that.
You're going to love it.
I definitely.
Great cast of characters. Lots of drama.
Oh, that's fun. When was that recorded?
So much drama. Huh?
When was that recorded?
We recorded it a couple of years ago and it released a few months ago. Everybody in the poker world was talking about it. Everybody loved it. Again, you're going to see real drama. You're going to see guys go at each other on teammates. Like, screw you, you're trying to screw me, whatever. Because there are situations that arise that I won't give away that like where you have to do what's in your best interest, but that's not in the best interest of your partner. And they have the same incentive, so they're going to fight over who gets the benefit and all that stuff. And you have to find ways to make it work within teams and different dynamics and different structures.
Wow.
You're gonna love it. It's the coolest show ever.
What was that? What was that? It was called the team. What was that game that called when all the big name players were involved? Alex Dreyfus was involved. Like do you remember that with the teams?
Cube. I mean, it was called the Cube. The Cube was the main thing. I don't remember the name of it now. The Global Poker League or something like that?
Yeah. GPL or something like that. Yeah. Okay. So I remember Black Friday turned it up. You also were a bit involved in trying to get the online poker coming back to the States in a way. We have American Card Room now. Is it possible to play in the States these days online?
There are some states where it's regulated. Nevada is one of them where you can play on WSOP.com. New Jersey, Pennsylvania, I believe Michigan, I think Delaware too. And it's a state by state issue. It's not ever. I don't think it's ever going to have much chance on the federal level. But if you could get California and New York, then you have a big player pool, right? Because those are like very big states.
Is it like promising that it's going in that direction? Would you say, or is it like it's hard to say?
Well, they're both tough states for two different reasons. California is tough because they have the tribes, the Indian tribes, the Native Indians have a lot of influence there, and they're not about it. They don't like it, right? So if they don't like it, not going to happen. Basically, like Pachanga tribe. I remember I met with some of them too. If they don't see how it's beneficial for them in their business, then they're not about it. Although I do think at some point they're going to have to realize that gaming and gambling has gone online. Like you look at this proliferation of sports gambling and all that stuff. Like people can do it from their phone. They're not going to drive out to your Indian reservation anymore to play when they can play on their phone. So why not get a piece of the pie, right?
Right.
New York's difficult for a different reason. It's fair. The politicians sort of see and they're not entirely wrong in this, but when you introduce gambling, online gambling to people, there's going to be some problem gamblers as well. So you're going to hurt some parts of your, constituency. Some of your people are going to be hurt by this that fall victim to gambling. What I would say to that, though, and I know this based on scientific studies and data, is that people that have gambling problems, generally speaking, and there's obviously exceptions to the rule, are not drawn to poker. Right. Because poker is a game that it's slower, more strategic, and generally people that have gambling addictions want instant gratification. Yeah. They want blackjack, boom, 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 boom. Want red, black. They want to bet on every game, sports, stuff like that. Poker requires a lot of work and strategy and thinking and thought, and the percentage of addicted gamblers that are going to end up in poker are much smaller than the other casino games, especially sports betting too, which is becoming a real thing now for the young. Young kids are all in it.
We'll see where that ends up. It's hard to get that point through sometimes because, of course, you're aware of the things that are negative, but also hopefully the guys that knows and goes for the negative stuff about it could understand a little bit about the positives about the social bit with poker, and also
well, the biggest thing that you could convince the states, which is true, is it generates a lot of revenue for your state.
Yeah,
right. You're obviously going to be able to tax it, right? And they want to do it. They're like, here, you're going to get your cut. So with tax money, then if you use that appropriately, you could actually help significantly some of the inner cities and schools and whatever you wanted to use the money for, is rather than nefarious things things that are, well, again, then you'd have to trust your government to spend the money right, which most people don't.
Yeah. Good. I mean, it's good to talk to you, Daniel. We can talk forever. I mean, it's really good to have some interesting topics and step outside the poker world as well and talk about other things. What's on your schedule for the next couple of months before the World Series now?
Well, I am going to go to Toronto for this quick hit. This WSOP is doing a circuit event back where I grew up, 5 minutes from my brother's house.
Wow.
So I'm going to go there. It's like a 2K. It's not a big tournament. I'm not going there for the value of the tournament. I'm going there to sort of, do some media around the event and whatnot. The thing is it's really on the heels of a wedding. Josh R.A. is getting married.
Whoa.
My wife, me and Amanda are going to go. But I'm going to meet her there because I have to go to Toronto. So I'm going to fly from there directly to the wedding, have the wedding there. And then right after that will be the U.S. Poker Open, which I'll play. Right. And that'll be it. The U.S. Poker Open will be it for poker for me until the World Series of Poker. And then I'm just counting the days. I can't wait.
Right, right. Excellent. No, it's going to be a pretty cool summer. It's a pretty big day too. You're going to change your 40 something to something else, right, Daniel? Do you
Well,
think
it won't
about
be till
that?
after the World Series, though,
Huh? It's
because the
after
World
the World
Series.
Series. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in July, right?
Well, it's funny because I'm July 26th. Amanda's she's early August, so and she's going to be 40. So we're going to be
Oh,
50 and 40. So maybe we'll do
oh,
some kind of a party here
90.
at the house or something like
Yeah,
50 and 40. It's kind of milestones for both of us.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's nice. You don't worry about that. You feel. I mean, we're happy with living in 2024. I would say when you can be around 50 and still, I mean, be in almost better shape than you ever been. Or what would you say? Are you good?
Yeah, age is just a number to me. It always has been. I mean, I'm going to be kid poker forever, right? But in all reality, I mean, I do everything I can to check my health. Whether it's I went to Pernuvo Lab in LA and they do like a full body scan. I'm getting all the tests done. To be proactive about it. And part of the
Mm.
reason is somebody close to me lost their best friend because he didn't get his prostate checked or whatever, and it was too late. And by that time, he had colon cancer,
Yeah,
and and it's one of those things where if he would have gotten a colonoscopy and caught it early, he'd be fine. So
yeah,
I think it's important as you get older, or when you're over 40, to start thinking about different health measures, like things going on that you want to check, because age is undefeated.
yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And especially when we're living in the age where it's possible to do things about it, things that were even 20 years ago wasn't possible to cure is today curable. And I mean that's great. So just it's a shame if you don't do at least the minimal things to check on your PSA and your colons and so on. So we better look after ourselves, shouldn't we?
Yeah, that's next up on the agenda, colonoscopy. I think I'll be okay, but you never know.
You'll be all right. You'll be all right. Just relax, Daniel. Just
Well, I
relax.
mean, like no, because in all reality, like diet does play a role,
Of
in that.
course, you're
And
you're
so,
still on your good vegan diet.
yeah,
You're gonna
yeah,
continue to do that. You're convinced for the rest of your
oh yeah,
life.
yeah. No, I think my colon's pretty clean as a
Yeah,
result.
yeah, yeah. Is there like something short that you tell people just to tell them to try it or to try to convince them? Because a lot of people are like, well, I like my meat and so on. What do you
Fine,
say?
yeah, do your thing. Whatever works for you, great. But if you want, when people ask me questions about it, I'm more than happy to share. But I
Yeah.
don't really push it on other people.
No, no, no.
Hardcore. Like, I know it works for me. Like, ideally, I would love to see everybody in the world adopt it. But I am also not militant, or I don't like many of the people in my life are not vegan. Most of them are not, right?
Hmm.
So I don't. You know, it's not worthwhile for me to try to go to war on those types of things. But when they do ask me questions, I will tell them the truth. And the number
Hmm.
one, you know, probably 10 of the top 11 leading causes of death could all be decreased by switching your diet,
Hmm.
period. Like heart disease, that's not a thing vegans really experience. Obviously some do,
Yeah,
but it's not really it's a
it's
toothless
really
tiger,
small.
as they say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, there's a lot of health issues that, again, it doesn't have to be vegan. You can do whatever works for you, like I said. But
Hmm.
just being conscious of what you're eating and thinking about it
Hmm.
is already a step ahead. Like, you're lucky you live in Europe.
Yeah.
So your food isn't going to have as many preservatives as ours because you have laws against that. Like, if you look at a ketchup bottle, Heinz ketchup in US, and then you look at one in Europe, you look at the Europe and it'll have like this many ingredients. And you look at the one in the US, it has this many ingredients. They just add a whole bunch of shit that's illegal in Europe, and it's illegal for a reason because it's really bad for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good. All right, Daniel, it was really nice talking to you, and maybe we will have a talk down the line. Are you gonna do the video log, the
Yeah.
vlog this summer as well?
We're going to do the vlog, but I'm going to have some days off this year for the first time.
That's good. So you're gonna do a proper schedule where you actually have planned days off, or you'll be more flexible when it comes towards the
Yeah, I'm
free
going to I'm
time
going to
instead
listen to
of
my
pushing
body.
it. Huh?
When my body says I need a day off, I'm going to take it.
There you go. All right. Okay. Say hi to Amanda and take care of the dogs. And we'll talk soon again, Daniel.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Take care. Thank you for watching this episode of The Sweetest Deal. It was really a nice talk with Daniel Negreanu. This episode was created thanks to our cooperation with Juicy Steaks Poker. I'm looking forward to see you next time.